suffers, he don't get that love he deserve. He the sun, she the earth, single mom, even worse. No job, never stay working, mad purdy. Shorty, they call her the brain surgeon. Time flying, she the same person, never matures. All her friends married, doing well. She's in the streets, yakety yakking like she was 12. Honey is 27, argues, fights, selfish in her own right for life. Guess she's in her second childhood.
Why is it that so many black women are alone? Why is it that they're unpartnered? Why is it that they're not married? What is taking place? Is it an individual choice? Is there an acculturation process that has taken place that has caused this dynamic to exist? What are the external factors that are contributing to this reality? Because if your situation is no different than hers and hers and hers and hers, and every one of us seem to be going through the same thing, we've got to look at this. There's got to be a reason for this. And so what I'm saying is what we have experienced as a people is quite unique that is creating this reality today. And you have to go back some 390 years to the plantation. Because in order to solve a problem, you've got to go back to the root of the problem. And when you go back to the root and look at all the dynamics, then you can come back forward and see what you need to do to solve that problem. And what I find that's interesting, this is a chapter. Now, how many people are showing? Because my question becomes, why is it that so many strong, successful, independent black women are alone? Has anybody ever asked that question? So in the book we talk about those reasons. And there are several reasons, but we've broken it down to 3 reasons. 3 things that men have done to contribute to the problem, and 3 things that women have done to contribute to the problem. Can I break that down? Let's talk about the men for a second. Now, understand that when you're talking about relationships, you have to deal in generalities. Because you're always going to find the exception to the rule. Is that correct? So in a general sense, let's begin with the men. Some men, correct me if I'm wrong, some men are intimidated by a strong, black, successful, independent woman. Is that correct? Yes. Either intimidated by her position, whether she is a high executive, if she owns her own business, he's intimidated by her position. He may be intimidated by her possessions. She has her own house, she has her own car, she's accumulated things throughout the course of her life. Or he are traditional in their thinking, right? They have that Archie Bunker mentality. Much like the video we saw in the other session. They don't believe it's a woman's role to have a job and to make money. They don't believe it's a woman's role to do that. She should be barefoot and pregnant, ironing his drawers, cooking his meals at home. And so because of that, many refuse to approach or remain within that relationship. Are all these examples of things that do occur? Yes. But now we got to talk about the girl. Because the reality is there are many men, even in this room, that aren't intimidated by your success. They're not intimidated by the fact that you make more money. Not that at all. But sometimes it's the attitude of superiority that you bring into the relationship that causes the problem. Because when he was making money, it was all good. But now we're seeing that women are now surpassing men, and now they wield the power, they're making the money, and there's an attitude that comes along with that. And so oftentimes a woman can emasculate that man with her things. And oftentimes she will compare what he's done to what she's done. And that will make a man back up. And it's interesting because we're seeing a shift in society today. The cover of Time magazine just a couple of months ago said that women are the richer gender or the richer sex. So we're seeing a shift of roles taking place. According to a statistic that just came out in 2011, it says that men are now the #1 benefactors of marriage. Just like, now remember the divorce scene when Janet Jackson and Malik Yoba were at the table and they were breaking up all of those accounts because they were getting the divorce, but there was that one account that she had. I think it was like $800,000 in that account, and she was just like, that's my money. You didn't write these books, you didn't go on these speeches, you ain't had nothing to do with that. How could you expect to get anything of this money? Now, how many of you agree with that position? Raise your hands up high so I can see you. Interesting. If the shoe were on the other foot, and that man had that bank account, and he was out traveling the country, speaking, writing books, making money, and had this stash of cash in the account that you knew about, and you were getting a divorce, how many of you would expect that you would qualify for some of that money? The same hands that just went up that said that the woman should keep the money are the same hands that just went up that said that you deserve a piece of the money. Now see the problem here? So a lot of times that's causing challenges now. Now it's quite interesting because when we're dealing with the strong, how many of you by show of hands would agree that you're a strong black independent woman? Let me see your hands. Very interesting. Have been passed down from generation to generation to generation, even in our households today. How many of you, by a show of hands, have been taught by your mother or your mother and your father to be strong, to be independent, to have your own this, to have your own that, don't rely on no man? Look at the hands.
I don't rely on
So they have trained you to prepare yourself to exist without a man. Now, even though their teaching was good to a degree, because it trained you to be strong and independent in those situations, it was not complete. So we heard more teachings that said, if he's not there, if he doesn't do right, this is what you need to do. But many of us, unfortunately, haven't been given the lessons. This is how a man should treat you. This is how you should treat a man. And so what we're doing now, we're entering into relationships, leaving men with no role to play because we were trained to do without him. So many of our parents are raising our daughters to be men. See, this is deep. This is really deep. And so now we have relationships with all types of issues. And we're wondering why. Because when a woman says something like, you know what, I'm strong, I'm independent, I don't need no man. When you say that, that's a good thing because you're talking about your strength, you're talking about your ability, you're prideful about what you can accomplish as a woman. And women are making it happen, women are doing it. But the reality is, everyone in society, the name of the chapter is Too Strong for Your Own Good. Everyone historically has benefited from the strength of black women, but black women. The community has benefited. From her strength. Her man has benefited from her strength. Her children have benefited from her strength. Except you. And so now we have relationships where you don't need a man because you think that's good. But when men hear that, they hear something completely different. They're saying, well, okay, if you don't need no man, and if you can do it all by yourself, then be by yourself. And that's why we see such an alarming rate of our beautiful, strong, intelligent women by themselves. And it's unfortunate and it's unfair. When you understand what independence really means, you may have a different take on it. Now, in the book, which many of you have, according to the word independence, can I give you the definition? According to Roger Super Thesaurus, independent means self-determining, self-governing, self-reliant, self-sufficient, and separate. Likewise, the word dependent means to rely upon for support, to place trust or confidence in. And so when these operational definitions are used, they tell a very powerful message. When a man or woman is committed to being independent within their relationship, what they're really saying is, I don't trust you. I have no confidence in you. I can't rely upon you. I'm going to be self-determined, self-governing, and self-sufficient. And that's fine as long as you are by yourself. But anytime you enter into a relationship and you commit yourself to being independent, it causes a problem because you leave that other partner with no role to play. So whether it's coming from a man or a woman, independence is never good within the confines of a relationship. You should never be independent of, and you should never be completely dependent upon. You should have interdependence, where you're relying on one another. And when you need to be self-sufficient, that's when it rises up. See, when he's not doing good, when he's falling on hard times, that's when your self-sufficiency should step up to the plate. But you don't want to bring that into the relationship if he's capable of doing what he needs to do. Does that make sense?